Hi there, this is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, and welcome to another random review. Today's random review is Bartleby from 1970, co-written and directed by Anthony Friedman, starring Paul Scofield and John McEnery. This is based on a story by Herman Melville, who of course wrote Moby Dick. The story is Bartleby the Scrivener. I think a Scrivener is just another name for a scribe or a writer. This indicator release is by number 240, and it's out on Monday the 21st of February if you haven't pre-ordered from Indicator itself. It's a film like quite a lot of Indicators I hadn't heard of, but then when you actually look it up, the story by Melville has been filmed several times. There's versions in 1963, 1969, not all of them are feature length. Then there's two versions in 1970, this one, and a short. There's two versions in 1976, a short one, and one directed by the actor Maurice Ronet, famous French actor who was in Le Faux Filet by Louis Malle, for example. And that one stars Michael Lonsdale. There's also a 2001 version which stars Crispin Glover in the title role of Bartleby, and David Paymer. But this one from 1970, it's a very simple story. Paul Scofield, who didn't make a lot of films, said it was the simplest script he'd ever read. It's basically a two-hander, even though there are other characters. And it's about this character Bartleby, who is a bit strange, who wanders the streets of London, eventually comes looking for a job in Paul Scofield's accounting office. He gives him a job, but most of the time when he asks him to do something, he just says, "I would prefer not to." And that's basically the premise of the film. Sounds fantastic, doesn't it? This is going to be a fairly short review. I haven't made lots of notes on this one because it's more a film that gave me an emotional response. Paul Scofield is absolutely fantastic in this film. He goes through the range of anger and frustration and bemusement. Pretty much he's the audience, essentially. Because again, if you switch this film off after 20 minutes, I wouldn't blame you. It's a film that I'm not going to recommend you go out and buy immediately, because again, not everybody is going to like it. But it's well worth your time, I think, if you do watch it. But like all art, it's how you come to that piece of art, how it affects you. Because again, for 3/4 of the film, it's only 79 minutes. You couldn't make this. I mean, obviously Tarantino would make it 2.5 hours long, but you couldn't make this. Even an hour and a half would be pushing it, because the script is so lean. So 79 minutes is the perfect length for it. Like I say, it's a two-hander, and what might frustrate some people is obviously the character of Bartleby doesn't say a lot, and he takes time to say I would prefer not to. Obviously, the other people in the office grow more frustrated, and why should he get special treatment? You know, why can he say, "Oh, I'd rather not do that" and get away with it? Paul Scofield can't quite bring himself to fire him because he just looks at him, and John McEnery's performance is really wonderful as well as this kind of nothing man. Like I say, it's frustrating because he's not refusing to do the work for political reasons, for religious reasons, for sexual reasons, for any reason. And again, like I say, that might frustrate people because, spoiler alert, there is no explanation given of why. He just says, I would prefer not to do that right now. And Paul Scofield gets advice from fellow bosses that he goes to lunch with, and of course they're just like, oh yeah, just sack him. But Paul Scofield thinks he can get through to him, he can kind of wear him down, but eventually Bartleby wears Paul Scofield down. So he does get to the point where he sacks him, but he pretty much refuses to leave the office, because we find out, and Scofield finds out, that he's actually living in the office at night. And in his time off, he just wanders the streets of London. So eventually, Paul Scofield gets to the stage where he moves office. So Bartleby is still in the old office, and he eventually gets lifted by the police and taken to a hospital, and then essentially a mental hospital at the end of the film. And even when Paul Scofield has moved office, he gets phoned up by the people from the old office building to come and try and persuade Bartleby to leave. And of course, Scofield doesn't feel responsible because he's sacked him. He doesn't work for him anymore, but he still feels responsible in some way. He's the only person that visits him when he's in hospital. And it's a film that kind of crept up on me because, again, I went through the same stages that Scofield goes through. You're frustrated, you're bewildered, you're kind of, why is this man doing this? What's his problem? Again, there's something going on, but we never find out what it is, because at the end of the day it doesn't actually matter what his reason for doing it is. It's just a state of inaction and just refusal to join in, or refusal to become part of the establishment, to do what everybody else does. In the latter part of the film, I did find it quite overpoweringly emotional, because I did resonate with Bartleby, because me personally, I've never really felt connected to the human world. I've never really felt connected to the systems and the machines that are put in place for social interaction. I've never felt that I have belonged to anything that is human based. So I did really resonate with Bartleby to a degree, as far as his just lack of connection to the world that you're supposed to be attached to. In the final scenes of the film, for me, again, this is just me, again, plenty of people watch this film and just go, what? This is terrible. But for me, I found it overpoweringly emotional at the end. And again, it's something that I can't describe in analytical terms I cannot give you concrete reasons why I found it so emotional at the end. Again, it took me by surprise because for the first half of the film, you're just frustrated and annoyed and bewildered the same way Paul Scofield is. So it's a fascinating little film. Again, it's a cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. An indicator release. It's an indicator film. That's all I'll say, and by now you kind of know what that means. The extras, it's a 4K scan on the restoration. There's an audio interview with Anthony Friedman, the director, from 2022, which is 15 minutes long. Friedman did kind of information films and stuff like that. Apparently he's only got one feature, which is Bartleby. There's a nice Bartleby's London 4-minute film which looks at all the locations in London which were shot in 1970 and how they've changed now. There's a trailer, and there's Beat the Bomber, which is a 1975-minute information film, which is 16 minutes long, which is an anti-terrorist documentary written and directed by Friedman, which is interesting, as these information films always are, about while you're working in the supermarket, a box of cornflakes could have an incendiary device in it. And then there's the 2017 version of Bartleby, which is 12 minutes long, which is a stop motion animation version directed by Kristen Key and Laura Naylor, which is interesting. And then there's a trailer, and of course, because it's indicator, you do get the booklet and the reversible artwork. I would say try and avoid looking at any posters for the film. Because the poster does have perhaps some spoilers on the front, so try to avoid the posters for the film. Again, I haven't said much analytically about this film. This is a film that's more, for me, about feel, and to me it just kind of crept up on me, and it was a really powerful emotional kind of reaction I had to it. In the mental hospital at the end, there's a woman who's got anorexia, but it's like in 1970, did they even have a name for anorexia? She's obviously very thin, and that kind of stuck out. It's like in 1970, how did they actually treat anorexia, or did they even know what anorexia was? I would say the release is multi-region, so it's an ABC from Indicator, because obviously Indicator going into North America, or have started releasing stuff in North America, but Bartleby is multi-region. So thanks very much for watching this fairly rambling random review, but the key's in the title, it is random, and Bartleby is a fairly random film, but it won't take up too much of your time. So please let me know in the comments below if you've seen Bartleby, or if you've seen any of the other versions of Bartleby, because like I said, I didn't realise there were so many. And hopefully you'll join me again for more random reviews. This is Solitary Ronin from Solitary Ronin Films, saying farewell.